The tension in the studio was more than just a vibe. It was alive, buzzing in the air like static before a lightning strike. The set of The View, usually bustling with the vibrant energy of live TV, felt strangely compressed, like too many unspoken things were crowding the room. Michael B. Jordan walked in with the presence of someone used to owning a space. He was polished, sharp in a charcoal suit that hugged his frame with precision. That signature smile, warm, camera-ready, magnetic, flashed as he made his way to the round table. The studio audience greeted him with applause, loud enough to shake the floor. "Hey, fam," he said, his voice smooth, relaxed, familiar. A charming wave, a few handshakes, and a nod to the crew. Everything looked just like the dozens of talk show appearances he'd done before, but this one was different. This time, something was waiting. Whoopi Goldberg gave him a welcoming hug. "Glad you're here, brother," she said with genuine warmth. "Before we dive in, subscribe, please." Joy Behar leaned forward with a grin. "I'm just gonna say what everyone's thinking. You make middle age look illegal," she said, gesturing vaguely at his chest. Laughter erupted. Even Michael laughed, a half smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Sarah Haynes chuckled too, adding, "And he does his own stunts, folks." The abs are real. But Sunny Hostin didn't smile. She sat upright, arms crossed over her tailored blazer, eyes fixed on Michael with a stare that didn't blink. She offered him a curt nod, barely polite, completely cold. It was subtle, but the temperature in the room dropped a few degrees. Whoopi kicked off the interview. "So Michael, we've all seen the trailers. Helicopters, explosions, narrow escapes. You're jumping off buildings like it's a sport. Did you really do all your own stunts this time?" Michael lit up. "I try to. I like pushing myself. I want audiences to believe what they're watching. But yeah, I definitely gave my stunt coordinator a few extra gray hairs this time." The audience laughed again. Even Sarah and Joy cracked smiles. Sunny did not. She leaned in slightly, her tone flat, calculated. "That's very impressive," she said with a touch of sarcasm just sharp enough to draw blood. "But what I want to know is, why should audiences care about yet another action film when there are real, urgent issues in the world?" The air thinned. Michael blinked, thrown off, but he recovered quickly. "I believe entertainment serves a purpose," he said. "Especially in hard times, people need to escape. It gives them a break. It reminds them to hope, to dream." "Escapism," Sunny repeated, as if the word had a bad taste. "How convenient for someone in your position, promoting fantasy while real people are suffering." Joy cut in, her voice trying to sound light but coming out tense. "Sunny, come on. He's here to talk about the movie." But Sunny wasn't done. Her gaze drilled into Michael, unwavering. "You're one of the few black actors who've reached this level of success, and instead of using your platform for something meaningful, you're playing men who blow things up and kiss pretty women." Michael's smile was gone. He straightened his posture, jaw tight. "With all due respect," he said evenly, "you have no idea what I do with my platform. I've created production companies that elevate black filmmakers. I've funded scholarships. I've supported multiple community outreach programs." Sunny waved a dismissive hand. "A few tax write-offs don't erase the fact that you're helping to perpetuate the same stereotypes. Angry black men, violent heroes, silent brutes." The room went still. No laughter, no whispering, just a charged silence that seemed to pulse. Michael's voice was steady. "I tell stories that matter, stories about redemption, family, survival. If you actually watched my films instead of judging them by the poster, you'd know that." "Spare me the press release," Sunny snapped. "When was the last time you turned down a check because the character didn't uplift the community? When was the last time you said no to a script that leaned on tired tropes?" Whoopi leaned forward, her voice soft, diplomatic. "Let's all take a breath here." But Michael didn't look away. "I'll answer," he said. I've walked away from more money than most people will ever see. I've fought to change scripts. I've insisted on hiring diverse crews. But you've already made up your mind about me, haven't you? His voice rose, not shouting, but unmistakably passionate. You've built an entire opinion of who I am based on movie trailers and assumptions. Sonny gave a sharp, mirthless laugh. Oh, so now you're the victim. Poor millionaire movie star being asked tough questions? Michael leaned forward, his elbows on the table now. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations. You're questioning my blackness, my integrity, and my entire career on live TV. Joy and Sarah looked visibly uncomfortable now. Sarah opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. This isn't about your career, Sonny said, her voice rising. This is about your priorities. You have the kind of influence most people dream about. Young black men look up to you. And what do you give them? Designer suits and explosions? Michael shook his head slowly. We're both successful black people, he said, his voice quieter but no less intense. We should be lifting each other up, not tearing each other down because our versions of success look different. Sonny narrowed her eyes. Don't turn this into a lecture on unity. This is about accountability. And this, Michael said firmly, was supposed to be an interview, not an interrogation, and definitely not a lecture from someone who's appointed themselves the moral compass of black celebrity. The tension hit a boiling point. Sonny's eyes flashed. She slammed her palm on the table hard enough to make coffee mugs tremble. I'm doing my job, she said, voice cold and fierce. Journalists ask hard questions. Maybe you're just too comfortable to handle scrutiny. Michael blinked, stunned by the sudden violence of her gesture. You haven't asked me a single question about my work, he said. You came in here swinging. You didn't come to have a conversation. You came to condemn Sarah, finally finding her voice, spoke. Maybe we should bring it back to the film, but Sonny bulldozed right over her. You want to talk about work? Fine, she snapped. In your last 5 movies, you've played the same brooding, physically intimidating black man. You don't see how that reinforces every stereotype we've been trying to fight? Michael's hands clenched into fists. His voice, when it came, was tight, restrained fury. Fact check that, he said. I've played a civil rights lawyer, a grieving father rebuilding his life, a pilot in a science fiction film, and yes, some action heroes. But clearly, facts don't matter when you've already decided who I am. Michael's voice cut clean through the tension like a blade, landing with the weight of something more personal than professional. The kind of voice people remember, the kind of voice that echoes. Sonny leaned back slowly, her expression unreadable, but her silence said enough. There was no apology coming. The audience, so lively minutes ago, sat stunned. The kind of silence you get in courtrooms, in funerals, in moments right before everything changes. I'm not going to sit here and let you rewrite my story, Michael continued. You're speaking to me like I'm some sellout. Like I haven't bled for this industry. Like I haven't fought battles behind the scenes that you'll never hear about because I didn't post them for likes. His voice didn't waver, but it thickened slightly at the edges, anger tightly leashed. You don't know what it's like to walk into rooms where you're the only black man with a voice and then be told you're too loud when you use it, to be called difficult for wanting a black cinematographer, or to hear execs say your character should be more urban because they don't know what black nuance looks like. He paused, eyes locked on Sonny. And yet, here you are, doing the exact same thing. Erasing everything I've done because it doesn't match your idea of activism. Sonny didn't flinch. You want nuance? Here's nuance. You operate in a system designed to reward silence and spectacle. You benefit from it. You've mastered it. That's not a crime, but don't pretend it's revolution. Michael leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing. You think you're the only one who sees the system? I live in it too. I just choose to fight differently. You want fire and protest speeches? I build companies, I write checks, I change narratives from the inside. But that's not flashy enough for you, is it? Joy glanced over at the control booth. Someone was making frantic hand gestures just off camera. The segment had gone off the rails, but there was no pulling it back now. Sarah leaned in, trying once more. This is clearly a passionate conversation, but maybe we need to... No, Michael said, still calm, still controlled. Let's have the real conversation since we're here now. He turned to Sunny again. You talk about accountability. Fine. But who holds you accountable, Sunny? You sit here judging black artists for not meeting your standards. But when was the last time you celebrated someone for simply surviving this industry without losing themselves? The words hit like a low drum beat. You want me to say no to roles because they're not perfect. But every role I take, I make sure I bring me to it. My layers, my soul, and I do it so the next black actor gets more options, not less. The audience began murmuring again, this time, not with laughter, but with a low hum of recognition, of discomfort, of something real. Sunny's lips pressed together. She wasn't retreating, but she wasn't attacking either. Her eyes softened for just a breath, then hardened again. I want more for us, she said, that's all. And so do I, Michael replied. But tearing each other down in public like this, it doesn't help. You say I'm not doing enough, but maybe the truth is you don't actually know what enough looks like. Maybe none of us do a beat past a long one. Whoopi finally spoke again, her voice slow, deliberate. I think what we're witnessing here is two people who care deeply about the community, just expressing that care in very different ways. Michael didn't look away from Sunny. I came here to talk about a film. I thought maybe we'd talk about how I co-directed for the first time, how we hired a crew that was 80% people of color, how the lead actress is Afro-Latina, and how we built an entire narrative around her strength. He shook his head, lips tight. But instead, I had to defend my blackness. Again, Sunny exhaled through her nose, clearly wrestling with something. The silence stretched. I didn't mean to question your blackness, she said finally, the words clipped and cautious. But I will always question influence. And how it's used. Michael nodded slowly. Fair. But that conversation deserves respect, not ambush. There it was. A line drawn in sand, but maybe, just maybe, not a permanent one. Joy broke the moment with a nervous laugh. Well, this segment has had more plot twists than a season of Scandal. The audience chuckled, releasing some of the tension. Sarah followed. We clearly hit something real here. And whether we agree or not, I think we all learned something. Michael took a breath and let it out. Yeah, I did too. Whoopi nodded. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, yes, we are going to talk about the movie. Laughter returned, like the tide slowly coming in. The camera light dimmed slightly, and the show cut to commercial. But on set, no one moved. Michael and Sunny stayed in their seats, not speaking, but not avoiding each other either. In that pause, in that uncomfortable silence, something real had passed between them. Not peace, not closure, but something close to mutual recognition. Not every battle ends in applause. The return from commercial break didn't come with the usual enthusiasm. The audience clapped, yes, but cautiously, like they weren't sure if the storm had passed or if they were still inside it. The music played, the studio lights warmed again, and the camera panned across the table where the 5 hosts sat, now flanked by a very composed Michael B. Jordan, his posture still upright, his expression unreadable. Welcome back to The View, Whoopi said, voice calm but clipped. We're here with Michael B. Jordan, actor, director, and apparently a lightning rod for deeper conversations. A ripple of laughter from the crowd. The studio was trying to return to normal, but something had shifted permanently. You could feel it. Joy jumped in quickly. Okay, so let's talk about this film. Red Line Protocol, action, suspense, global stakes, and you directed some of it too, right? Michael nodded, loosening just slightly. Yeah, it was my first time stepping behind the camera in that way. And honestly, it was exhausting, but the kind of exhausting that feels like growth, Sarah added. And you co-wrote too. What made you want to tell this story? Michael's tone softened. It's about more than just explosions and chase scenes. It's about a man trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter while the world falls apart around them. That emotional core was what drew me in. Sunny remained silent, her gaze on her notepad. The energy between her and Michael was still heavy, quiet now, but not resolved. Whoopi, always the anchor, gave a small smile. See? That's what people miss sometimes. There's heart behind the spectacle. Michael glanced sideways, eyes briefly meeting Sunny's. Exactly, Joy brightened. And it's already tracking huge pre-release numbers, right? People are excited. Michael nodded. The response has been overwhelming. I think people are ready for something that lets them feel big emotions, even in the middle of a wild ride. Then, almost like she couldn't help herself, Sunny spoke, quiet but direct. Do you ever worry that people won't see the emotional depth? That they'll only see the explosions and walk away with nothing? Michael looked at her for a moment. Then, yeah, all the time. But I'd rather take that risk than not tell the story at all. It wasn't a truce, not exactly. But it was an answer she couldn't easily attack. Clips were circulating, some showing Sunny's harder jabs out of context, others showing Michael's calm rebuttals. Narratives were forming faster than facts. In one camp, Michael B. Jordan, the poised king of cool, unfairly cornered on live television. In the other, Sunny Hostin, the brave truth-teller holding celebrities accountable. The internet had picked sides. The fight wasn't just about Michael anymore. It was about fame, responsibility, black identity, and the impossible tightrope walk between authenticity and palatability. Back on set, Joy tried again to lighten the air. So, any injuries on set? Michael chuckled. One twisted ankle, 2 bruised ribs, nothing permanent. Sarah smiled. The price of doing your own stunts, he nodded, and trying to outrun a moving train without CGI. Finally, a genuine laugh from the entire panel, even Sunny, barely if you look close enough. But beneath the laughter was a low thrum of unresolved tension, something that couldn't be laughed away. The segment was winding down, but the effects would ripple long after the cameras turned off. As they wrapped up, Whoopi extended her hand to Michael again. Thanks for being here. For real, Michael shook it. Thanks for having me, Joy chimed in. And we hope you'll come back maybe next time with fewer fireworks. He smiled politely. No promises. The show moved to the next segment, but the story didn't end there. By the time Michael exited the studio's side door, flanked by his publicist and assistant, a crowd had already formed outside. Paparazzi, fans, protesters, supporters, critics. Everyone seemed to have something to say. A woman shouted, "Michael, do you think Sunny was out of line?" Another, "Michael, are you still proud of the film?" Click, click, click went the cameras. His assistant whispered, "We should move." Cars waiting. Michael paused. The sun hit his face as he looked up, blinking into the chaos of flashbulbs and iPhones. Then he turned to the reporters with just one line. "I'm proud of the work. And I stand by what I said." He slipped into the black SUV, the door shutting with a finality that echoed louder than any studio argument. Inside the vehicle, his phone vibrated non-stop. Dozens of texts, missed calls, mentions. He looked down at the screen. One text stood out, from a number saved only as R, a mentor from back in his early days. "You good? Remember, truth first, noise second." Michael stared at it, then put the phone down and exhaled slowly. He wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Back at the studio, Sunny sat in her dressing room watching the replay on the monitor. Her phone, too, was exploding. Some messages called her brave, others called her bitter. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she sat there, expressionless, the makeup team long gone, the noise outside her door muffled but unrelenting. She watched Michael's face on screen, calm, sharp, deeply human. She whispered to herself, not quite regretful, but no longer sure. Did I go too far? The camera light on the monitor faded to black, but the story was just beginning. 2 days later, the segment had gone from controversial to historical. The clip had amassed over 11 million views across platforms. Morning talk shows dissected it. Late-night hosts made jokes. Think pieces flooded digital media, half praising the necessary confrontation, half condemning it as ambush television. Everyone had an opinion. Few agreed. Michael B. Jordan's name was everywhere, but Michael himself was quiet. He didn't post, didn't tweet, no press interviews, no follow-ups. His team urged him to get ahead of the narrative, but he didn't want to. He had nothing more to prove, and deep down, maybe a part of him was still trying to understand the truth of what had happened. He sat alone in his home office, walls lined with framed movie posters, awards, and a few deeply personal photographs. One in particular always caught his eye. Him and his mother, taken during the wrap of Fruitvale Station. He was younger then, hungrier, still figuring out what kind of man he wanted to be, not just in Hollywood, but in life. He stared at that photo for a long moment, then finally pulled out his phone. One message, drafted, sitting unsent, to Sunny. You asked hard questions. I gave honest answers. That's realer than most of what we see on TV, no hard feelings. Maybe next time we talk off camera. He hovered over the send button, then locked the screen and placed the phone face down. Across town, in her apartment overlooking the city, Sunny stood on her balcony, the skyline stretching out like a question she couldn't yet answer. She, too, had remained mostly silent since the segment aired. Producers defended her. Critics called her combative. Some viewers sent hate mail. Others sent flowers. But none of that mattered. Not really. She replayed the moment in her mind, his face when she called his philanthropy tax write-offs. The way his voice trembled, not with weakness, but with conviction. He hadn't cracked. He hadn't stormed off. He'd stood his ground. And she, in all her sharp edges and unshakable certainty, had perhaps forgotten for a moment that strength doesn't always look like defiance. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Inside her apartment, a glass of wine untouched, she sat down with her journal. No cameras, no producers, just ink and paper. She wrote, "We ask so much from our Black icons. We demand they be perfect symbols when we should let them be complex people. Today, I confused accountability with antagonism. It wasn't the first time, but it should be the last." She closed the notebook and sat quietly for a long time. By the following week, the firestorm began to cool. Michael's film opened to massive box office numbers. Critics praised the emotional core, the direction, the casting. It wasn't just a blockbuster. It was personal. One review read, "Jordan delivers explosions and intimacy in equal measure, proving that action can be art when intention leads the way." Sunny returned to The View, and for the first few shows, the topic was carefully avoided. But then, in a Friday episode, it came up. If you like this video, then subscribe.